Welcome back to Reimagine 2020. I'm Yonah Hochhauser, and today I'm glad to be joined by Josh Goodbody, Binance's Director of European and Latin America Growth and Institutional Business. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Yonah, it's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right, now I want to break down, we're going to get into all aspects of your business and your role, but let's start off with the location. Your territory is Europe and Latin America. What's the significance of these two regions for Binance?
Yeah, great question. I mean, massive opportunities for Binance in these markets. You know, Europe and Latin America, completely different markets, completely different, should we say, kind of target customers. Europe has a history of, you know, really strong financial markets. You've got various financial centers in Europe. And so we tend to see the kind of adoption of crypto assets there being a little bit more slow, a little bit more cautious. But over the last year or two, we've really seen massive amounts of interest. And there are various reasons behind that we can talk about later on. But, you know, Europe for us is a very large growth market in that there's already a pretty sophisticated and comprehensive financial ecosystem throughout most of Europe. And people are used to trading. They're used to buying equities, you know, stocks, bonds. They're used to doing that on their own account. So in Europe, we already have a user base that is quite sophisticated and is kind of ready to get up and running and trade with us, right? But in Latin America, it's a very different market. You have different requirements and different drivers for crypto assets. Lots of people see, especially in emerging economies in Latin America, that, you know, suffering from issues with their native currency. They're looking at crypto assets as a really great way to, you know, hedge their exposure to their ever devaluing national currency. So they see crypto as a way of life and as a store of value to help them in their day-to-day lives. So very different requirements, but both are core target markets for us. And, you know, we've got massive communities in both regions. And what we really want to try and do is build local products and services, kind of connect with them a little bit closer by building, you know, teams on the ground that are much more aware of what local countries and local regions are looking for. So, you know, top of the priority list for us in terms of regions, but very, very different challenges.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like you mentioned, they do hold different challenges. They're very different in terms of their user base, you know, the way their markets are built. Interesting that Binance decided to combine those two, at least under one umbrella. Clearly, you seem like a very capable fellow who is able to juggle them both. So let's focus on on Latin America. You know, a very unique region of the world, very varied economies there. Which country in Latin America so far has had the easiest crypto onboarding?
Wow. Okay. Well, Latin America is hugely diverse, right? Diverse in so many respects. Some countries have quite well-developed regulatory regimes for crypto. Other countries have an absence of regulatory regimes, but very high consumer adoptions. So really, they're completely different. Now, Brazil has a history really of kind of, you know, innovation when it comes to neo-banking, liberalizing their banking markets. And because of that, you've seen a wealth of fintech startups there. And there are a lot of local crypto players in Brazil. And that's kind of forged a path in Brazil where, you know, there's a clear and present desire in the Brazilian economy and Brazilian consumer demand for crypto assets. So we've seen a massive increase in engagement in Brazil over the past couple of years, culminating really in this year being our real kind of core, I'd say, connection with the Brazilian market, creating more and more communities out there. So we've seen that as a gradual ramp up. Now, there are other economies that have been facing kind of inherent domestic challenges, like, for example, in Argentina, they've seen really high devaluation of their local currency. And I think that's kind of sparked an interest in kind of the national psyche of, right, if we can't hold our money in our national currency, and it's difficult to get our hands on exposure to gold and other so-called safe haven assets, we've got to be looking at other things. And crypto assets have, over the past few years for Argentinians, increasingly looked like interesting assets to put their wealth in, to put their money in. And we've seen that kind of organic growth in a country like Argentina without there being a clear, for example, framework for crypto assets as it relates to, for example, local law or local regulation. Places like Mexico, you know, last year introduced what was called the Ley Fintech, which is a framework for licensing for local crypto ecosystem providers. And, we have seen things specific to the Mexican economy, which relies heavily upon remittances, and the use case of remittances being paired with the functionality that crypto assets can provide. We've seen that being a massive growth area in Mexico for us as well as for local providers. So each Latin American economy is completely different in terms of what they're looking for. And our obligation as a crypto ecosystem provider is really to help build products and services for those local markets. And we have to take a localized approach to each one. We can't come in and say, this is who we are, this is what Binance does, take it or leave it. We have to go, right, okay, what is it that we can offer you in your local market? What can we build for you? And that's why we're taking a personalized approach to the region. And within the region, we take a personalized approach to each market. Now, we've got a long way to go, right? We're starting out on this journey of really taking our global business local. And this takes some time. And a large amount of that time comes with listening and engaging with the community. We've had to do that digitally, right, over the last couple of months. We can't travel right now like we previously could, can't jump on a plane, get in front of our community at for example, an event of some kind. We've had to do it digitally. So our team has been kind of pivoting their approach in engagement, how to gather consumer feedback, how to engage with our community. And there are various ways we do that. We connect with them via, online and digital events, but we also have what we call our angel team. And our angel team are kind of like our boots on the ground. They are our front line in terms of engaging and speaking with our community. And we have hundreds of angels globally that work with our local communities to gather feedback. So our angels for us have been one of the most useful tools in our armory as we kind of try and connect with our communities digitally and virtually over the next, over the previous months and over the next couple of months. But we're really beginning on that journey, right? We're beginning on that journey of building out local offerings. And it's a fascinating journey, and our users love it so far. And we're going to continue trying to kind of grow in that respect.
I think you hit on a really interesting point and a really fascinating point always to me, where so much of the blockchain, so many blockchain projects and cryptocurrencies, they've been looking for adoptions. They're looking for what is the use case, that killer app or that use case that could onboard not just early adopters and crypto lovers, but mainstream people. And I think kind of by necessity, you see that a lot in Latin America, where a lot of their local currencies can't be trusted, the crazy inflation, they're becoming devalued. And that has naturally caused a really excellent use case for cryptocurrencies, like you mentioned in Argentina. How much of in your view, is that the way, that in your view that mass adoption will come by these naturally caused use cases, whether it be local currency inflation, or do you see blockchain going in the way of kind of a built use case that kind of like what tech companies do now? Apple is famous for this, where they build a solution to a problem you didn't even know you had, like AirPods.
Right. That's a great analogy. I think both. I think blockchain companies and the blockchain industry are going to continue to innovate, right? Just by design. I've been in the crypto space for a couple of years now, and really, there's a core personality trait in many crypto teams, let alone crypto founders. And that is kind of this inquisitiveness and this desire to keep building and building. So I feel like there will be solutions built to problems we didn't even understand that we had, a little bit like you said. That's a trend that's going to continue over the course of the next, at least this year and onwards, I think. Just by the nature of who people in the crypto industry are and why they have joined the crypto industry, what their personal drivers are, what their mission is. Now, in terms of real world use cases, I think where we are right now as a global economy, let alone local economies, as a global economy because of COVID, because of what we're seeing, the knock-on effects of the COVID crisis have created, it's kind of like an awakening for a lot of people. They've realized that, at least in lots of, for example, developed economies, they've never had to think of devaluing currencies for the last couple of decades. In the UK, we've never had to think about our currency being eroded by inflation for the last 30, 35, 40 years. The same goes for a lot of states in Europe as well. Having joined the euro, they've not really been conscious around the kind of increasing threat of inflation to their the euros in their pockets and in their bank accounts. So there is a new awakening in terms of public thinking and public discourse around, wow, while governments fight the COVID crisis with fiscal stimulus and printing money left, right, and center, there is an impact of this. Money has an impact, and the increasing inflationary pressures on money has an impact on everybody in society. And usually it's the end Joe Bloggs, the average person, that suffers during this. It's not the banks, it's not the large corporates that have all these tools in their armories to fight against these things. It's your average person that suffers. And they're looking at these increasing economic headwinds and going, what do I do about this? I'm not the kind of person that can go out and buy a fund. I'm not the kind of person that is comfortable trading stocks to diversify my portfolio. I want access to some kind of asset that could present, some kind of safe haven quality to it. So I think there's so much happening at the global economy level that there will naturally be a pivot and a shift in people's thinking towards crypto assets. And whether that's simple things like buying stable coins or buying Bitcoin as a tool to fight against or hedge against inflationary pressures, I think, that's going to be a trend that continues as we entered this rather, murky, uncharted water that we're entering into because of the COVID crisis. So to answer your question and go back to your question, I think there's going to be two parallel tracks. One is building because that's what the industry does, building for the sake of building because they're fascinated by the journey they're already on and they're going to continue innovating. And the second is real world use cases are increasingly becoming apparent and common. And those two, I think, are going to be, working in tandem. And it's going to be fascinating to see which of the two have more of an impetus and more of an impact on kind of real world adoption of crypto assets.
Mm-hmm. I've been covering blockchain and cryptocurrencies for 2 years now, and for so long, up until Corona, for so long, one of the creeds of coins like Bitcoin, was, hey, this is out of the hands of the government. It's anti-inflationary. Governments are spending. If you don't, so-called, if you don't trust the government and their fiscal policy, you can kind of hedge into Bitcoin. And I think that Corona, and it's been terrible, the amount of destruction and death it's brought. Sure. It also has brought a unique opportunity. It's kind of kickstarted that theory of, hey, countries around the world are printing money like crazy, stimulus packages all over the place at record rates, and the crypto markets, whether directly or indirectly, have kind of risen and are in a very nice bull run right now. In your view, has Bitcoin specifically and crypto as a whole, the crypto market as a whole, has it reacted as you thought it would have reacted to the situation we're in today?
I think there are a couple of things here. The industry itself has reacted as we would have hoped, which is continuing innovating, continuing building. Crypto is almost a little bit, it's a very strange asset class in that it can be counter-cyclical, but at the same time, it can be correlated to what's happening in the market. You see a plunge in equity prices, and people naturally pull some of their money out of crypto to be able to meet some of their financial obligations because of the crash in equities or other traditional markets. But then at the same time, when you zoom out of a micro event within the global economy and you look at trends, general trends, we've seen a massive bullish trend in the crypto market over the course of the last couple of months. I think it would be foolish to say that this is pure coincidence when we're in these really unprecedented economic times. People are increasingly looking at crypto assets as something they want to be involved with. That's not, I would say, kind of off the cuff remarks. That's backed by hard data. If you look at the all-time traffic going into crypto ecosystem providers, exchanges, wallet providers, it's at an all-time high. If you look at volumes, there are all-time highs. If you look at engagement with the community, whether that's, for example, Twitter, which is a really easy and nice indicator as to whether people are talking about crypto more and more, and they absolutely are. So I think the ecosystem has continued, and the industry has continued building and developing, whilst other traditional economies have suffered. And I think, whilst some of this really difficult situation, economic situation starts to hit home in some traditional sectors, the digital asset space is going to continue growing. And there's been hiring across the board at Binance during this period. We scaled our team massively from 800 or so to over 1,000 people. We've seen similar trends in other competitor exchanges. We've seen similar trends across other digital asset ecosystem providers, whether they're wallet providers or payment service providers. We've seen the same trend. So we've continued building during these difficult times. And I would hope that's a trend that we can continue pushing forward as the mainstream interest in crypto asset continues to grow. We continue building products and services, and of course the size of our team. So we're right at the beginning of this journey, but nonetheless, I think we're taking really positive steps forward.
Well, speaking of Binance continuing to innovate and taking steps forwards, just in the past 12 months, Binance has released over half a dozen new features: saving, staking, loan, mining pools, debit cards. It's kind of crazy. Which one, because we see it on the user end, but you're on the Binance side. Which one have users, you guys been most excited about?
That's a really difficult question. As you say, we've been building. We've been building, and that's the Binance way. CZ, our founder, that is his hallmark, right? Just build. And that's one of the things that we as his team are tasked with doing. And we've been pushing product out non-stop for the past couple of months. There are a few things that are really interesting for us and our users at the moment. DeFi is one of the kind of, popular areas of crypto asset development. And Binance has been in DeFi from the very beginning. We've had a DEX, from the outset. Our DEX was, in place before DEXs became popular. So we've continued to develop in that space. And recently we announced the launch of our Binance Smart Chain, and Binance Smart Chain going onto the mainnet in Q3. That's one of our core kind of objectives, really. And that for us is one of our ways of unlocking the potential of DeFi. So with the Binance Smart Chain moving forward and moving from testnet to mainnet, we're bringing smart contracts onto the Binance ecosystem, which further develops the utility of our Binance chain. We've integrated with Chainlink as one example. Chainlink has a kind of out-of-the-box solution to bring tools and products to developers to start building on Binance Smart Chain. And we're doing things that are kind of being done on other decentralized ecosystems, like, for example, BNB staking. So taking our native asset, putting it on a decentralized environment, and having a staking functionality built in to the Binance Smart Chain. So we're trying to kind of foster as much of the DeFi ecosystem as we possibly can. And that's really something that we are trying to kind of lead from the front on. And you might have also seen, and the community have seen us listing a lot of DeFi products and services. And at the core of those products and services, we're listing those assets that come with that. So we've listed, over 10, 15, 20 assets over the past couple of months that are particular and specific to the DeFi space, because we really want to support those. So that's a continuing theme, I think, that you'll see. In terms of other products, Binance Card, I think, is one area that users have been really super engaged with, and saying to us, when are you building this? When are you going to get this out? And Binance Card for us has been a long time in making. And that's because we want to get it right. We want to build something that's super powerful for users, that's connected to their Binance account, that lets them hold their crypto assets and then spend them on the go. So, one of the core criticisms we've seen about crypto cards and some of the current providers on the market is you've got to go from your crypto asset to cash. Every time you do that in large chunks to be able to pre-fund a card, you pay pretty extortionate fees, whether those are network fees, whether those are spreads that you're being charged. So we wanted to create a really frictionless way of allowing their users to spend their crypto assets. And that frictionless way has to also be cheap. So we make it as simple, cheap, and affordable as possible to hold your crypto assets and spend that with the Binance Card. And that's gone down really well with our users. And they've, seen that as one of their pain points. They trust us to trade with them. They trust us to hold their assets. Of course, they want to be able to spend their crypto assets with us as well. So Binance Card has been a core area that we have been developing, and it's gone live in some of our European markets. Users are testing it, they're playing with it. Feedback is excellent so far. We're going to be rolling that out on a wider basis over the course of the next month or two. One of the other areas that we're really excited about is bridging the fiat and crypto ecosystem. So integrating kind of best-in-class fiat deposit and withdrawal channels with our .com ecosystem has been a real success story for our team. In Europe, there's a wealth of GBP, faster payments and Euro SEPA channels that we now have integrated, and bridging that kind of old world economy with the crypto space is so key for us in helping our users integrate crypto into their day-to-day lives. So there are lots of areas that we're super excited about and that we have seen users really adopt from the get-go. We've made it accessible to them and they've adopted it and they're using it. There's lots more I can unpack. I know there are some areas that we want to talk about later on, and futures will be one of them. But I think that's a little snapshot of some of the areas that we're super excited about and have gone down very well with our users.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, before we move on to futures and other great stuff, you did mention this idea of you guys trying to bridge, the old school, the established financial system with their fiat currencies with the new crypto world. You come specifically from a law background. What kind of carryover have you seen? The historically traditional financial instruments and products and institutions have been very regulated. How has it been? How do you feel that regulators have kind of, handled these new DeFi products, crypto financial products? It must be tough. You must be on the forefront of this, trying to, bring in a new player into a traditional game. Are they been receptive? Have traditional financial institutions been receptive to crypto? And have the government regulators been receptive to these new crypto financial products?
Yeah, everything takes time. Everything takes time. And we've, as a company, we've been working on this for a while. And I remember when I first got into crypto, I guess I was on the sidelines in 2016, looking at it from afar, thinking, wow, this is, a really, really interesting space. I want to be involved in this. I kind of started getting involved in it from a professional capacity in 2017. And in that time, there was a real absence of one, I would say, in the mainstream markets, a real understanding of crypto assets, what they do, how they work, and where they're going, right? What can be built using crypto assets. At a regulator level, I think, a lot of people say regulators don't understand crypto assets. Believe me, they do. In most mainstream economies, they've already legislated for them. They've already built kind of frameworks for regulating and or supervising them. So I think it's taken time for that to happen, but it's already happened in most countries. You've seen, for example, the UK regulator bring out its crypto asset framework recently. You've seen that happening across Europe as well. You've seen the BaFin in Germany take their own interpretation as to what crypto asset regulation should look like. We've seen the US taking strides in various areas, whether that's, for example, building state-specific regulatory regimes or clarifying at a federal level how crypto assets should be treated and regulated. Throughout, emerging economies, we've seen time after time, we've seen, crypto assets being defended and supported, whether that's in India by the courts mandating that, for example, crypto assets and crypto asset firms should be, accessible to banks. So banks need to be able to provide services to these firms and this emerging economy. We've seen the same in Brazil. We've seen lots of kind of regulatory frameworks come to light in Latin America as well. So this movement, it's not a one-off or ad hoc movement. It's a general trend towards establishing crypto assets as a mainstream asset. And with regulation, and this might be kind of counterintuitive to a lot of the community that have seen crypto assets as being a almost kind of quasi-anarchistic movement. With regulation has come capital, because people have been emboldened to develop and invest in crypto assets. And out of that has come massive amounts of innovation. So I think regulation has unlocked a large amount of the entrepreneurial crypto economy that we're seeing today. And in that respect, I think, it's a trend that's going to continue growing. I think institutions for a large part have been getting involved behind the scenes. They haven't made a song and dance about it. They haven't said, on their websites, we are involved in crypto assets, but, they have been exploring this space for a long, long time. And, a great example are financial market participants, whether they're banks, custody providers, asset managers. They've been looking at the crypto space for a long, long time. And they've been from a very granular level investigating how they need to get involved in this. And, we have seen huge examples of mainstream adoption over the past couple of years, whether it's, for example, some of the largest pension funds in the US allocating crypto assets. An example this week came out where we had a publicly listed company publicly declare that they are holding some of their capital reserves in Bitcoin. No longer are they holding a percentage of that in cash. It's now in Bitcoin. We have seen large counterparties that are providing, for example, asset management services to end users, whether that's Charles Schwab or for example, Robinhood opening their doors to consumers to buy crypto assets. So this kind of trend is really pushing forward at quite a pace now. And we're right at the beginning of this, which is so exciting. We've seen massive adoption and kind of uptake from the space, but I think we're right at the beginning of that, and we're going to see more and more over the next year or two.
The company, I'm assuming you're referring to, is MicroStrategy, who they moved 250, I think it was million or billion. No, it must be million, $250 million
right.
Into Bitcoin as their anti-inflationary, protection against inflation. Really awesome stuff to see. The big institutions and big time. They're the first actual NASDAQ listed company to make that big announcement, which is interesting. You mentioned that a lot of these institutions, they're not making a song and dance about it, but behind the scenes they're going. Now that regulation is slowly getting there and it's becoming more mainstream, why are institutions still a little scared, or they still do behind the scenes? Why are they so scared to kind of be out there and say, hey, this has legitimate use cases. This is a legitimate way of utilizing this technology for the benefit of our shareholders, of our business, of our bottom line? Why are they still scared to say that?
I think something so new will always inherently have a bit of a hurdle in gaining mass traction, right? So the example you used earlier, which was the MicroStrategy company, the publicly listed company, publicly saying that they have, after long and hard assessment, decided to hold a large amount of their capital in Bitcoin because it's a hedge against inflation, is one example, I think, of a number of upcoming examples that really demonstrate the use case of Bitcoin. And no one wants to be the first person to the party, right? There are lots of people who are at the party, but they haven't said they are, right? They haven't put their hand up and gone, hey guys, by the way, we're doing X, Y, and Z. And a firm like MicroStrategy is coming out publicly on the record and saying, this is what we're doing, is so, so powerful because it de-risks other CFOs, it de-risks other treasury teams and financial teams in other companies to think about this and go, actually, we've got a large amount of cash on the balance sheet. Don't really want to put it in slightly more volatile assets. Maybe we start putting this into Bitcoin because it acts as a real hedge to inflation. So one, that's now been de-risked, which is a massive vote of confidence. I think stepping back and looking at, for example, other large firms in the space, whether they're asset managers, banks, etc., it's taken some time for them to kind of get up to speed with this market. It's so, so new. And everything gets done in a slower, risk mitigated way. And by that, I mean, if you're a bank and you want to start, for example, holding crypto assets, or you want to start providing your clients with access to that, the time it takes to go from reviewing a proposal, considering it, evaluating it, voting on it at an executive committee level or a board level, that can take a year, right? And we're just starting seeing these things happening and going through approval processes. And one great example of that, that we have personally felt and seen recently, is the New York, the NYDFS Department for Financial Services, greenlighted or added BUSD, which is our Binance USD denominated stablecoin. They added that to what's called their green light. And their green light list essentially means a crypto asset that a currently regulated firm can hold and offer to its clients without seeking separate approval from them, right? And that gives a massive vote of confidence to these firms that they can now, without engaging with the regulator, without having to go through, should we say at times arduous and costly legal due diligence, they can move forward and start offering a dollar stable coin to their users. And they themselves can hold that on their balance sheet with the certainty that they need, that the regulator's not going to walk in and go, what are you doing, right? So simple things like that unlock massive amounts of growth in the market. So, these things take time, I think is my core message. But we're seeing things moving very quickly, which is super positive.
And I think that highlights a really important point where you're saying these things take time. Banks move slowly, regulators and governments move very, very slowly. What doesn't move slowly though is the technology. If, like you mentioned, if you look back 2 years ago, DEXs weren't big things. DeFi wasn't yet big. The technology is so new and growing so fast that there inevitably leads to a point, or seemingly every day, where the technology is definitely outpacing the regulation. Regulators move slow, technology moves quickly.
Sure.
So kind of in your view, because you mentioned that institutions are going to come into regulation is there. In your view though, do you think, kind of which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Is the technology gonna come first and then mainstream adoption is going to happen? Like people, were using Bitcoin before there was regulators even heard of it. Do you think that the technology is going to come, people are going to adopt it, at least the early adopters are going to adopt it, and then regulators will catch up? Or do you feel that, which has been historically what's been going on, or do you feel that big players like Binance kind of should get ahead of the curve and work directly with the regulators to say, hey, this is the technology, this is what we're developing, this is how it works, and we feel that you should, regulate with the curve?
Yeah, I think these things tend to happen in parallel, because where there is a vacuum of clarity from a regulatory perspective, people build in that vacuum, and then the regulator comes along and goes, let me understand what this thing is. And you've seen regulators doing that. Good example, in the UK, the FCA consults. They open a consultation period for a couple of months where existing firms doing certain activity give them feedback on what they're doing. And the FCA will ask questions. They'll go, well, in the traditional space, we do X, and we're thinking of Y. What's your feedback on this? So we tend to see regulators across the world actually take a very collaborative approach to this. And where regulation makes sense, consumer protection, for example, preventing, situations of market lack of integrity, so preserving market integrity, regulators will step in and say, this is probably something that needs to be regulated. And crypto ecosystem participants, people in the industry, have to be at the table. You have to have a seat at the table. Great example of that. We saw Binance US join a pretty well-known industry body, a crypto industry body in the US. In Europe, we've got similar movements happening as well. There have been crypto-focused industry groups for a long, long time now that have made massive contributions to regulators at a pan-European or a global level or a state level, have made massive amounts of kind of inroads with those regulators to help educate them. And it's our duty to do that. And I think there's a positive message in this, which is that they listen and they want to engage with us. And I think as innovation happens, of course, there's going to be this kind of behind the curve catching up that regulators will have to do. Great example, DeFi. DeFi evolves at this magnitude of pace that we, even in the industry, can't keep up with. We see, growing and emerging trends, whether it's yield farming or, other kind of innovative aggregation of DEXs. We see these things as brand new, and it will take some time before regulators kind of catch up and go, okay, we fully understand what this is, and this is how we believe we should regulate it. So I think working hand in hand with regulators is where the digital asset industry really needs to be. You've got to have a seat at the table to have a voice. And I think those structures there, those support structures are present. They're absolutely there, and we see regulators engaging with those support structures very, very actively.
Mm-hmm. No, you mentioned you got quite excited once you started mentioning about DeFi and this fast pace that they're moving. In looking at a broad picture across the blockchain, sphere to all these projects, and what excites you the most? What's like the most exciting? Where's the frontier in your mind happening right now in the blockchain sphere?
Gosh, where to start? Well, for a long, long time, DeFi has been quite tribal, right? DeFi has been split across what's happening in Ethereum, some innovation on the EOS side, and of course the Bitcoin blockchain, and trying to bridge all of these different silos has been really difficult. So I think we're getting to this really exciting stage where DeFi is becoming truly interoperable across chains. So cross-chain interoperability is a really fascinating, exciting trend from a personal perspective. And I know Binance is equally excited about this because if you can bridge and unlock all of these different protocols and make them work seamlessly together in some way, shape or form, you unlock the real potential of DeFi. DeFi shouldn't be captive to Ethereum or Ethereum-based protocols or assets. It shouldn't be captive or shouldn't be inaccessible to the Bitcoin ecosystem either. It should be cross-chain interoperable. So I think we're really seeing solutions coming to market that can offer that, and that's a game changer, I think, in terms of DeFi. And then with that comes the real unlocking of, for example, decentralized exchanges and liquidity on decentralized exchanges. One of the core areas that decentralized exchanges have suffered with is a lack of liquidity. If you're a market participant and you want to go and execute a large order, you might not do that on a decentralized exchange because the liquidity is too thin. You're going to have massive slippage. Your execution price is going to be poor. You're going to do that on a centralized exchange. And so by making, DeFi almost blockchain agnostic, I know that sounds a little bit ambitious, but if we can make DeFi as blockchain agnostic as we possibly can, make it as interoperable as we can, suddenly we unlock massive amounts of liquidity or liquidity pools within the DEX space. So, it moves at a pace that I can't keep up with. Every time I take a look at what people are building in the DeFi space, I'm amazed. And I know that the Binance Smart Chain team are kind of at the forefront of this, and I'm constantly impressed and wowed by the things that they're building. So for me, I could go down the rabbit hole and never come back when it comes to DeFi and all of the kind of emerging trends in DeFi. We are at a fascinating juncture right now where DeFi has almost moved into the mainstream consciousness of crypto assets. Where that's going to go, I don't yet know, but I know that we're right at this cutting edge of innovation, and I think it's a trend that's going to continue.
For sure. I mean, it definitely fits with the ethos of decentralized finance, to kind of have this interoperability so that DeFi itself is decentralized, as even an industry or as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I one of those things that we mentioned before, Binance Futures, tying in with regulation, how, where do you see Binance Futures? I mean, tell us a little bit about it and how it fits into this, fast moving industry, and with all the different, like we mentioned, every single day there's a new financial instrument being offered. Where does Binance Futures fit into this whole big picture?
Yeah, Binance Futures has been a pretty fascinating success story for Binance, and the team spent a lot of time building this, and they released it at the end of last year. And really, Binance was a little bit late to the party when it came to futures. And everything we do at Binance, we build it in-house usually. So this has taken us a little bit of time to get up to speed. Now, when we launched this product, of course, we knew that the appetite was there with our existing users, and futures and other derivative products are such useful tools for the crypto asset space, because they unlock, a whole new set of use cases for users. People use futures to kind of hedge their exposure. People can use options to kind of, build their kind of future thinking outlook when it comes to crypto asset exposure. So we really wanted to support that from day one. And in building our futures platform, we took a slightly different approach to other market participants, and we focused on supporting the altcoin market. So as a good high level summary, when we turned 3, Binance turned 3 this year. And that was last month. Thank you. So when we turned 3, we had an all-time high of about just over 34% of market share in the futures space. Now, because we'd focused so much on altcoins, actually Binance Futures is the leading altcoin derivatives provider, and our market share is about 41%, and that's what we were seeing in mid-June, mid-July. So we saw our support of the altcoin derivative space really reinforced by the market appetite and the volumes that we saw. In terms of kind of our altcoin futures volumes, we saw those in July grow fourfold in a 2-week period, which was phenomenal to see, from $500 million on July the 1st to more than $2 billion as of mid-July. So our daily volume, really skyrocketed. And we took a bit of a gamble, I think, supporting the altcoin space, but we feel that we see the clear and present demand there, and we're going to continue supporting that. So as of today, we have more than 35 pairs of perpetual futures. We've got 4 quarterly pairs. We have more than 4 different leverage tokens. We've got more than 3 option pairs. So we've really built this extremely comprehensive suite of derivative products. And they have real world use cases for example, retail users, for institutional users, for traditional financial market participants. And we're going to continue building that product suite out. So for us, it's been a real ride to see that grow, and hats off to obviously the futures team for making that happen. But it's going to be something that we continue building out throughout the course of this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and congratulations to you guys for the wonderful work that you guys done. And you mentioned that you have quite a large percentage of market share, a big piece of the pie, so to say. But I think one of the big issues facing blockchain technologies, and especially even big companies like yours who have a big piece of the pie, is how do we make that pie bigger? In your view, what is the biggest stumbling blocks for actually making for that pie bigger, for actually bringing in the new users, the people who don't know crypto, who aren't new adopters? Is it UI, UX? Is it education? Is it just, hey, like my grandmother still has trouble with the internet. New technologies are harder for old people, and we just got to get the youth in. Yeah,
so many elements to that. We have to build products and services that bridge the crypto space with the traditional space. I've mentioned the Binance card. That's one great example. A lot of people go, okay, I can buy Bitcoin, I can hold my Bitcoin, but what do I do when I want to spend it? I don't want to pay 5% fees by cashing them out and then a bank transfer where I pay another fee. Making it easy for people, making it affordable for people is a core theme. So products and services. But stepping back, actually, if we zoom out and look at the wider picture, the crypto asset space is so new. So how do you get people involved in that? Well, education is a key tool. And it's down to the industry to educate their users. And Binance for a long, long time has been building out its what's called Binance Academy. And we also have a website called Binance Info. And those two tools together form a pretty powerful educational tool for our existing users and for new users alike. And we create written material. We also create kind of bite-sized media content as well. And I think, giving people educational material is the very beginning of their journey into understanding crypto assets, because, people learn about financial markets sometimes at university, sometimes at school, sometimes from professional advisors. There isn't that support structure yet in the crypto space where, people are educated as to what Bitcoin is, how Bitcoin works, what's a stable coin, what are the inherent benefits and use cases of stable coins. So it's on us as an industry to really kind of build out those educational tools. And it's something that Binance, really, I think, excels at. We produce a massive amount of educational material. And also we produce a large amount of research. So depending on what your kind of level of comfort is, you can start with the kind of basics, the blockchain 101s, which give you kind of basic understandings of how the blockchain works, what the different assets are, how to get involved in it, up to really kind of granular research papers about different crypto assets and protocols. So we see it as our obligation and our duty to educate, and we're going to continue doing that. And as an industry, and you said increase the size of the pie. It's a great term. We want to make the pie bigger. How do we make the pie bigger? By getting more people involved. And as an industry, we need to continue educating people, working hand in hand with governments, working hand in hand with educational initiatives. I think we can really start kind of making inroads into kind of the public knowledge of crypto assets and what these assets can do for people. So we're going to continue building out educational content. It's something that I think we're going to continue making more accessible in more languages, in more places. We need to continue translating some of the stuff that we have produced into as many languages as we possibly can. And taking that kind of lesson to the masses. We do simple things, really, really simple things like, our local teams might hold a webinar with a local subject matter expert on simple things like tax. How does one fulfill their tax obligations in France, for example? We held a webinar on it a couple of weeks ago, and we had 1,000 people listening to a subject matter expert in France, a tax advisor, go, let me tell you a little bit about how crypto assets are treated under French tax law. Simple things like that, giving people the tools to educate themselves is a really core tenet for us. And we can always do more, and we're going to continue to do more. And I think where we can participate and kind of collaborate with the wider crypto ecosystem to produce more educational content, we're going to be doing that.
It's funny because Binance has their Binance Academy. You guys try to get as much info about crypto out there, but I think recently, in the past couple of weeks, we saw a pretty blown up way of doing it, where Dogecoin actually went viral on TikTok. And I don't know if you heard about that, but yeah, Dogecoin went quite viral on TikTok. It was probably the first exposure from TikTok's a very young technology in terms of the user base, and it probably was the first exposure to a cryptocurrency. Happened to be Dogecoin, but the first exposure to a cryptocurrency for a lot of these young people.
Sure.
One, does Binance have a TikTok? Two, do you guys plan on making a TikTok? And three, do you feel like the crypto sphere has done enough utilizing and leveraging these kind of, the tech that kids are using in order to reach them?
Yeah, I mean, we are all over a number of social channels, whether it's Telegram, Instagram, traditional channels like LinkedIn. We're kind of everywhere. TikTok is somewhere that we're thinking about. I mean, do we have an account? Yes. Are we as active on the account as we'd like to be? No. But I think you're going to see a lot of interesting material from us in the TikTok space very, very soon. And as you say, we have to be connecting with different demographics. And TikTok is such a powerful tool to get, in front of people and give them a flavor as to, what crypto assets are, but in a really enjoyable, lighthearted, light touch way. And, you mentioned the Dogecoin example. What a great way to kind of get people involved in the crypto space by giving them a window into this fascinating success story of an asset that came out of nowhere and went super, super far and continues to grow and grow. So I think, we have traditionally been pretty active in the social space, and we're going to continue to be active in the social space, connecting with as many different segments of the market. And for example, young people are really kind of the pioneers in using social media in the most innovative and powerful ways possible. And it's down to us to really create a bridge with them. One of the great things that we have is our angel community. And I mentioned that really briefly earlier. Our angel community, they're kind of like our core advocates when it comes to our business. They're out there with their local communities, creating their own content, whether it's educational, whether it's giving people heads up on what's happening in the markets or what's happening with Binance. They're at the forefront of this. And they use different mediums to do that. And TikTok is one of those mediums. And we tend to find our angel community also is a little bit younger than, for example, our average demographic when it comes to users. So we see them kind of spearheading our entrance into things like TikTok and kind of creating value and media that isn't cringeworthy. We want to create stuff that's really, really powerful and really engaging. So yeah, we're super open to utilizing new tools and new channels. TikTok being just one of many.
Mm-hmm. And I know you're very busy, so I'll give you one more question before I let you go. We spoke so much until now about the amazing success that Binance has had until now, and the tons of new products and features that they've released. Looking forwards, what's next for Binance?
What's next? Building.
You guys already had your fingers in everything. What else is there to go into? I mean, what is next?
It never stops. I mean, look, as we build, we continually identify more areas to build into. So you're going to see a lot of new products and services coming to market over the next couple of months. We've got some very exciting things that we're bringing to market that will make the whole experience of trading on Binance much more social, much more engaging, whether that's a troll box so users can kind of speak to each other and engage with each other on the platform, whether that's creating a almost social element to trading where you can follow other people, you can view their portfolios, what they're up to, their performance. So we're really creating a pretty powerful community dynamic with some of the tools and products and services that we're building. But at the same time, you're going to see us being more active at the local element. So we're going to be much more present, having local teams on the ground, connecting with communities, engaging with communities. Right now it's virtual. We're going to be doing all of that virtually. But when the post-COVID era comes, and fingers crossed that's extremely soon, we're going to be holding a lot of, offline events, face-to-face events, connecting with our communities, and listening. A huge amount of listening is going to happen from us about what people want to see next. So you're going to continually see products and services come to market. We're going to build at a local level as well. And we are all ears in terms of feedback. So we really kind of want people to connect with us. So anyone who's watching this, please do connect with us on Twitter. Do follow us. You'll kind of get hot off the press kind of news updates and product updates as they come. So definitely stay tuned. We've got a lot planned for this year.
Well, it's incredible to see what you guys were able to accomplish in just 3 years. I can't wait to see what you guys accomplish over the next 3 years. Josh, thanks so much for joining me and taking the time. And for all our viewers at Reimagine 2020, I'm Yonah Hochhauser. Thanks for watching.